Good evening and welcome everybody to the beautiful, beautiful town of Arkham, Massachusetts. The year is 1922 and we are going to be exploring the witch-cursed populace of this interesting location. So let us just bring ourselves over to the camera. Hello. So, my name is Dennis, and it's my crime. It is also my punishment. I am a freelance storyteller, GM, keeper of arcane lore for various tabletop RPGs. At the moment, I am running a ongoing Call of Cthulhu campaign, which I have nicknamed Nightmares of Arkham. That's going to be something that you can find on startplaying.games. But that's not the purpose of this video, unlike others on my channel. This particular video is going to be us taking a look at a very specific book. And I just want us to get right over to the front page. I had everything set up and then I messed it up because I'm a silly boy. Yes, so we are going to be looking today at this little thing. This is the brand new setting guide for Arkham, for Call of Cthulhu 7th edition. Now, to be fair, I will say this off the bat, calling this a setting guide is a little bit of a misnomer. I personally consider this to be more of a sandbox campaign rather than a setting. The main reason being, this book is absolutely filled, and I mean filled with various bits and pieces. You know, like story seeds. There's every single location has NPCs that you can connect to, interact with, and each of them have little hooks and little bits and pieces of story where you can take it in different directions. Now, this is not the first version of this book by any means. The original, I believe, was written in 1990. I have lost my notebook and I have turned off my light. I'm so glad I decided to do this live. It's going to make everything so much more entertaining. But yes, let's get the light back. And no, my light has... Yep, no, beautiful. My spotlight has decided that now is the perfect time for it to give up. And isn't that just the way of things? But anyway, let's just continue. I'm so glad I put the time and effort into putting on a little bit of a costume and doing a little bit of a thing for the camera, and that happened. Isn't that lovely? But anyway, yeah, this is how all my games go for the most part, by the way. So if you're ever curious about how my sessions go, it's kind of like this, in all honesty. But anyway, the original book came out back in 1990, and this was actually for the 4th edition version of the game at the time. And recently, basically, just over a year ago, before I was really aware that this version of the setting was in the works, I'd actually treated myself to... Let's just bring ourselves back over to the book club page. I'd actually treated myself to this version. This was a version that actually came out in 2003. It was a reprinting of the original 1990 version. However, it had some changes. It was basically, as you can see up in the corner there, it was part of a dual system. Because back in the very early 2000s, this was around about, I believe, the time when 3rd edition or 3.5 of Dungeons and Dragons was coming out, and that arguably that was probably one of the most popular versions before 5th edition, obviously. and everybody was trying to get, I think it was the birth of the OGL, the Open Gaming License, which if you've been paying attention to the tabletop industry over the past 12 plus months, you would know that that's been a little bit of a thing recently. But yeah, with the advent of the Open Gaming License, everybody was trying to get in on that sweet D&D attention, because just as true as it is now, back then, trying to convince someone to play something other than D&D was a little bit of a challenge. So they basically were adding in a set of optional mechanics for Dungeons and Dragons 3.5, or I think at this point it was still like the 3rd edition. But anyway, so throughout this book there are various stats and NPCs with 2 different basically sets of stats and everything. So this was the edition that I picked up like over a year ago, and it was basically this that I was using as a basis for the campaign that I am now running. This isn't really a review of this book, but I do want to have this guy open in the background as we're going through this little book review. It's not going to be an entire page-by-page thing. If you want that, then buy the book yourselves, because I will tell you right now, it's going to be worth it. I'm also going to tell you that I am going to do a very basic breakdown of how this book works, everything that goes on in the book for the most part. But there will be a spoiler section right here, right now. This is the spoiler-free section. So I just want to look you all in the eye right now and let you know that spoiler-free review is basically thus. This is a really good reimagining and a recreation of the original content that started back in 1990. This has definitely been updated, brought up to modern sensibilities and modern standards. Not to say that the old book sucked by any means. There's a lot of really interesting content, and surprisingly, a good deal of it has remained kind of unchanged for the most part. It's just been wording and verbiage has changed. It's been gamified a lot more. This particular book is an excellent resource for keepers, for people who want to run a game set in Arkham. And the new book is absolutely filled with tables, systems, and all manner of tools that a keeper needs in order to actually run this game properly. They really did a good job in regards to, say, travel distance. And you give me a moment, I will see if I can actually bring up the relevant locations here real quick. But going to be doing a lot of jumping back and forward between different scenes, because for those of you who've been following me in the past, it's been a while since I was able to stream and everything, so I'm just trying to get back into it. But anyway, stuff like this here, this amazing chart of travel distances, this is actually a resource that I've been using in my own game quite a bit. All the maps have been updated from the previous edition. There's a lot of beautiful looking spot art, the very specific and distinct districts and neighborhoods inside Arkham. Each of them, the original flavor that they have has really been given an extra tweak, instead of the original one, which felt a little, I would say, no disrespect, but everything felt a little bit samey. Let me just see if I can give you a very quick example. So without looking at the spoilers too much, you can see like the basic map here which I don't believe we have a full version of the map queued up. That is, it was basically a hand-drawn, you know, street map with pretty much all the houses there. And it's a beautiful piece of artwork, and it's something that I have been using in our main campaign, only a colorized version. However, it all looks like one big place, you know. Each location, aside maybe from the university campus, doesn't really have a very strong visual vibe. And again, with the new PDF, the new location, let's just bring up, let's bring up the north side location real quick. You see here these really beautiful looking maps, and they're all in the same style. I'm actually going to put this on just a single page. Yeah, you've got this really beautiful isometric looking map of north side and everything. And it also shows off the tram lines as well are actually part of the map, which in the previous version it was not. Again, let me just get a full page view so we can whoop. There we go. So you can like see the difference there. These are both exactly the same locations. Ironically enough, with pretty much the same locations, like say number 104 over here, I believe is going to be the same as 104 there as well. Because again, a lot of the entries haven't really changed that much. It is just the visualization is a little more modernized. Everything, instead of most of the buildings all kind of looking, you know, somewhat, because it's a black and white drawing, everything has a very homogenized look, which was just obviously a symptom of the time. You know, obviously printing technology and the resources that Chaosium as a company have evolved over the past 24 years. No, 34 years. I'm thinking, you know, the 90s. Yeah. So 34 years have definitely made some improvements to this company and the resources at its disposal. So I am not in any way throwing any shade to the previous work of like artists. I know that I believe Luis Cortez Real was the artist for the old book and everything, whereas the current map art was made by, let me just bring him up again real quick, because I want to give everybody their due. There was a lot of very talented people working on this. Yeah, the maps, I believe specifically, let me see, I don't think it's showing the interior maps in this one, so I did have a note written down, but my organization skills, as you see, are somewhat lacking. But yeah, the basic shtick with this book is this is an excellent resource if you want to start a game from scratch. You could absolutely do it with this book, and of course the Keeper's Guide. The Keeper's Guide would be an excellent resource, especially since you have a scenario included there, such as Crimson Letters. Crimson Letters, I think, is a very interesting story to start your players off with, and that's also very sandboxy as well, because it's a very free-form scenario where you can mix and match motives, you can swap things out. There's no one way of running that particular scenario, so I do recommend you know, this plus the Keeper's Guide. Also, there's a whole bunch of scenarios that tie into Arkham, because one of the things I did not mention is that this particular setting, the 1920s New England setting, is, well, it's the signature setting. This was the modern era when Lovecraft themselves were writing. So what we consider is an interesting look back 100 years ago was modern day fiction for them. So the 1920s, it's been a staple of many scenarios, especially like New England and Arkham as a town itself. You will find it very easy to locate scenarios that fit with this book. Not just one of the most recent campaigns, I believe, A Time to Harvest, that actually takes place using material from the Miskatonic University. Again, the university is a core location within this book and this town. So you could easily just use that. You could go with all manner of older scenarios. Obviously, you want to tweak some of the rules and everything, but again, this game has been around long enough, and it's the basic roleplay system is flexible enough to where conversion from old versions of the game is laughably easy. And once you've actually run a few sessions yourself, I would say that Call of Cthulhu very a lot easier to run than Dungeons and Dragons, in my opinion, because its main focus isn't so much on crunch and numbers. It is about investigation. It's about building an atmosphere, and it's about presenting a mystery for your players. The main joy of this game would be for, people, your players are not, grand adventurers. They are just normal, everyday people trying to basically figure out something strange. They're trying to solve they're trying to explain the unexplainable. And I would strongly recommend people who are interested in the game. See, that's a point. Would I say that this is a book for people who have never played the game before? Not really. Not really. This is absolutely not a player's book either. I want to be very clear on that. If you are a player of this game and you want to have a game in Arkham, get someone to run this for you. Buy this for them. Yeah, treat your keeper. Absolutely. Give them gifts and presents, and maybe your character will live a little bit longer. But seriously, this is a toolbox. This is a sandbox campaign kit. Unlike previous editions, such as the one from the 90s and 2003, there are no pre-packaged scenarios in here. There is no on-the-rails story for you to follow. However, if you are a keeper who likes to build their own adventures and scenarios, you will have to be trying hard to not be inspired by all the stuff that's in here. This is a very strong source of inspiration. This book is going to give you campaign ideas for years. You could run quite a lot with this location, and this is but the first of several. There were many other New England locations that all tie to each other very well in previous editions, and they have confirmed that they are working on bringing pretty much all of them up to date. It is no spoiler to reveal that the next book is, I believe they announced it was going to be Innsmouth. And I'm actually going to bring up where is Arkham? I believe we can bring up the map of the wider area of New England. Here we go. And I'm actually going to put this a little bit larger. So we're going to fill the screen here, get back over here. And yeah, so this is the main area of New England where most of the these stories would take place. Obviously, we have Arkham all the way over here, and I realize that you actually can't see anything on the webcam. So let's just say the right hand side, you can see Arkham. Then somewhere above that, you see a little place called Innsmouth, or Innsmouth. Innsmouth, it's probably a no-brainer to have this be the next location, since the story Escape from Innsmouth is probably second only to Call of Cthulhu. In fact, I would say that Escape from Innsmouth may be as famous, if not more famous, than the Call of Cthulhu itself. Now, personally, I would much rather we be getting the Kingsport book next, mainly because Kingsport is pretty much the, aside from the Innsmouth one, it's one of the only two that you actually can't legally acquire on PDF anymore. The only way you can get those books legally is if you spend a considerable amount of money from a third-party vendor, because these books came out in the 1990s. So I'm very excited to see all of the locations be updated, including, of course, the distant town of Dunwich, or village, I should say. I believe Dunwich is a village, if anyone's familiar with the Dunwich horror. Yes. But anyway, my personal preference, of course, Kingsport, mainly because my campaign is taking a lot of inspiration from Kingsport and the stories there. And literally, it's Kingsport are the pants of Arkham. It is literally right down there. So I personally think it's a no-brainer to, you know, have stories there, especially when on the bus route thing that we were looking at earlier, it shows that Kingsport is, in fact, yeah, let me just bring it back up. No. Kingsport is literally just, it's like 3 miles from Arkham, unless I'm mistaken. Trying to remember how one reads this map. Yeah. So it's literally just down the road. It is very easy to get to Kingsport. You could walk there. And it's got such a unique and interesting flavor on all and of itself that I'm very, very excited for that. But anyway, going off topic, the main focus of this, of course, is the Arkham setting. And you can see we're using various, you know, pieces of beautiful artwork, very inspirational pieces from the book here. But do I have any final thoughts that are spoiler free? Yes, I do. Yes. I'm not going to give exact examples, but not only was the artwork very, you know, plain and black and white, the whole book itself felt very white because this was the 1990s, and it just wasn't really something that people really thought too much about, I suppose. You know, like, diversity in gaming is something we're paying a lot more attention to these days as we were back then. And in my initial setup of the campaign that I'm running, I did notice, albeit subconsciously, that not a lot of people of color around in the 1920s, which just wasn't true. It's just, you know, they weren't really mentioned in the book. So in this new version, there are quite a few race swaps. So you do have a bunch of existing people. It's not a spoiler to mention some names, like Hagen, the painter, and a couple of other individuals. Have basically very little has changed, except in some cases their gender and their race has been swapped around to add a little bit of color, while keeping the core essence of that character the same. And I'm fine with that. Honestly, I am fine with that, because Arkham was a little bit too white, in all honesty. So given the fact that it's New England, there are massive migrant populations. There's a massive Polish population that's written in canon in the location. There's the Irish mob, there's Italians, it is a melting pot, so it is good, in my opinion, to update a few characters. One update, and I don't think this is going to count as a spoiler. The one update which did kind of surprise me was Gerhard Winch. Gerhard, in the original book, he's basically described as like an albino German spiritualist. He's got long white hair, young dude, but with long white hair. And, he basically bonked his head when he was a kid in Germany and he could start talking to ghosts and everything. And I've been using him in my campaign, just been having a lot of fun with him. However, in the book, the new one, he has been race and gender swapped into, I believe, this Creole woman. And I'm like, that's okay. But then I noticed later on there's this other, character who was turned into a mystical brown-skinned woman. And then there's another character later. And it's like having 3 mystic brown women. I don't know. I'm not saying that's too many. I'm just saying if you're trying to get a variety of flavor and everything, it's like there's a little bit too many there, in my opinion, And again, I think personally, don't call me on this, too many brown people, please, dear Lord. That is not what I'm trying to say, honestly. But I just think I understand getting some of the boring characters where they're not that really interesting, they don't have much flavor, and then spicing them up, making them a little more interesting, a little more diverse, and giving them a new twist and everything. I think that's great. What was wrong with albino German dude? What was boring about that character? I know, I've just kind of hung up on that one a little bit because it's like I have been using him and he does show up in other adventures, like the scenario I'm currently running for my players, a little tale called The Reeling Midnight, which I personally think is an excellent introduction to Arkham, as well as, say, maybe Crimson Letters. Reeling Midnight is actually a fan-made scenario by Stygian Fox. It's in a collection featuring the infamous Innsmouth story, A Mother's Love, by Seth Skorkowski. If you've no idea who any of these people are and everything, yeah, you definitely want to check out Seth's channel. Seth Skorkowski is the dude when it comes to Cthulhu, in my humble opinion. So cannot recommend his work enough. The Modern Mythos podcast, if you're interested in finding more about him. And of course, Dr. John Hook, his co-writer. But that's a whole side discussion for a later date. But yeah, I guess that's pretty much it really in regards to the spoiler-free for this book. Is it worth it? Yes, it's absolutely worth checking out if you are someone who is going to be running this game for other people and you want a large, interesting melting pot location where they can go and do anything. You could have entire campaigns in just this location. But there's also enough material over the 30 plus years that this game has existed that you can draw from and pull in with this as the core basis. It's an excellent book, worth every penny, in my opinion. So, with the spoilers, the non-spoilers out of the way, this is your final warning if you are a player to get out. If you are a keeper, come on in. And if you are someone who is thinking of running this game yourself, come on in, join me as we go a little bit deeper. Now, there was a character. I'm just going to go over